All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lamar Neal. I'm an outreach specialist over at Riverside City College. And today we're going to talk about Riverside City College. Before we get into that, I do just want everyone to know that you have a bunch of options. I will never stand here and tell you that you have to go to RCC. I will never stand here and make it seem like Riverside City College is the only option out there for you. You have many different options after high school. And no matter what grade you are in right now, it is never too early to start thinking about those options. So start having conversations with yourself. And the first question, in my opinion, would be, well, what is my plan? Am I going to school? Am I going to the workforce? Am I going to the military? Do I not know? But really start having those conversations. If you decide you want to continue your education in college, then you're going to have some more decisions to make because you now have to decide where are you going, what is your major, so on and so forth. So in terms of higher education, colleges you can go to after high school, one of your many options is Riverside City College. We have been around for over 100 years. We opened our doors in 1916. And in that time, we have gotten students to where they needed to go. Our tradition is getting you the education that can brighten your tomorrow. So hence the tagline, Riverside City College, where tradition brightens tomorrow. So we're really helping students plant the seeds to become the person they want to be in the future. Education is a powerful tool. With education, it opens up a lot of doors for you. A lot of jobs are going to require some type of education, whether that is an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's, a PhD. And of course, the only way to get any of those degrees is by going to college. So some of the information we're going to talk about here is going to be specific to Riverside City College. Some of the information we're going to talk to you about is going to be just about community colleges and colleges in general. But I will do my best to just remind you on what is an RCC process and what is just a standard across any college you go to. So let's go ahead and get started here. So before I want to talk about RCC, I do feel inclined to talk about the higher education systems that you're going to have in California. When we say higher education system, we are talking about the different types of colleges that are out there. So in the state of California, we're not even talking about out of state. We're not talking out of the country. We are talking about California. There are 4 types of universities or / colleges you can go to. The first is community college. Community college are 2-year colleges that can offer you 2 years worth of education and get you an associate's degree. We will talk about everything you can do there. They're a lot different from Cal State's, UCs, and private institutions because Cal State's, UCs, and private institutions can offer you something called a bachelor's degree. Some of them can even offer you master's degrees and PhDs. So the first system is community college. The second is Cal State's, CSU. So this is like Cal State San Bernardino, Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State LA. Then you have UCs, which is our third system here, University of California. And this is schools like UCR, UCLA, UC Davis, UC Berkeley. And then you have private institutions like Chapman, Cal Baptist, Azusa Pacific, USC. There are tons of those as well. You're going to have options, a lot of options just in the state of California alone. And what I want you to know about each of these systems are they all offer you the same thing, which is an education, but each of them can offer different types of education. What each of these schools do can be different depending on the focus of the school. Some schools can say, we are here to help students with research and theory-based careers. So if one wants to get into something that's research heavy and theory heavy, then you might choose one over the other. Some are more practical, meaning they're not there to teach you how to do research. They are there to teach you how to do something specifically. So you want to teach? Let's show you how to teach. You want to be a social worker? Let's show you how to do social work. So you really have to start researching to see what does each of these institutions offer you and how can they help you get to where you need to go. But the bottom line is they all do the same thing, which is education. Now, there's no hierarchy when it comes to these systems, meaning one of them is not better than the other. So if you have a student that goes to a UC, let's say UCLA, that doesn't mean that UCLA student is smarter or better than someone who goes to a Cal State. And just because someone goes to a community college does not mean that they are any less important or intelligent than someone who goes to a UC, Cal State, or a private institution. Again, why you would go to any of these schools just varies on what you're trying to do. But again, they all hand you pretty much the same degree. The only difference is what your degree says. But you're not going to get a degree and someone says, oh, well, you only went to a community college. They're looking for, do you have the knowledge to do the job? If you do, then you're fine. Now, specifically with community colleges, what they offer students compared to the other ones. As I mentioned, we're a two-year institution. So you can't get a bachelor's degree with us. You can't get a master's degree. But we offer things that you will not find at some of the four-year schools like Cal State's, UC's, or private institutions. The main thing that community colleges offer, this is not just RCC, this is Norco, Valley, Crafton, you name it. We are open access schools. And what that means is we're locally and regionally accessible to everyone. Anyone who applies to a community college can go to a community college. There's no SAT requirements, or GPA requirements to get into the college. Now, once you get into the college, you do have to have certain GPAs to stay at the college, but we will not ask of certain requirements for you to get in. The reason we do that is to provide education to you all. Let's say we lived in a world where every college in this world said you had to have a 3.5 GPA for us to consider you. And we can still tell you no if there's someone with a higher GPA. There is literally not enough colleges in the world to accommodate that. If everyone can say no, and many students would not have access to education. So community colleges exist as a way to allow people to have education, even if they can't or do not want to go to a four-year school. So everyone can get in. Now, because we are open access, let's be real here. I've heard a lot of different things about community colleges. And because it's open access, some people don't see them as a sign of success or anything to write home about. Oftentimes students are celebrating like, hey, I got into Cal State, but then some students go, yeah, I mean, it's just community college, I'm here. But it is something to celebrate because it is college. You are taking a step forward in your education. And remember, you're getting the same education. So we're open access because we want to provide education to everybody. Now, when you get into a community college, what do they specifically offer you? Now, associate's degrees, you can get an associate's degree from any college. So this is not just a community college thing. This is not just an RCC thing. But when you go to a community college, the most you can obtain is an associate's degree. Now, in college, it's not about the number of years. It's really about the number of units. But I'm not going to get into a lot of that because it can get confusing. So what I'm just going to say is I'm going to just use the year system here. So think about college like high school. There's freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. If you do everything you are supposed to do, take the classes you're supposed to take and pass the classes you're supposed to take, then you can get in and out of RCC with an associate's degree in 2 years or less. In that 2 years for your associate's degree, you will be taking classes for your major, that's 1, and in general education classes, that's 2. So you're going to be taking 2 types of classes, general education courses and major related courses. Your major related courses are specified based on what your major is. So if you are a English major, you're taking English classes. If you're a history major, you're taking history. I forgot what I said. If it's a history major, you're taking history classes. If you're English, you're going to be taking English classes, so on and so forth. But then your general education is going to be classes that is not major specific. So your general education is going to be math, history, English, reading, science, you name it. Think about all of those classes you have taken in high school, those random courses that you had to take because they said you needed health science. It's the same way in college. So you're going to be taking classes similar to that with your general education, and then you'll also be taking classes that are specific to your degree. Once you do all the requirements for those once you do your general education requirements and your major related requirements, then you will walk away with an associate's degree in whatever your associate's degree is in. Once you get that degree, you now have an option to take it a step further. If you want to continue your education and go to a 4-year university, you can then choose to go to a 4-year university after you leave RCC or your community college. So what that looks like is you'll knock out your freshman and sophomore year at a community college, and then you will transfer into a 4-year school as a junior, and then you will complete your junior and senior year. So you can still get to a 4-year university if you go to a community college. The plus side of coming to a community college first, if you decide to go to a community college first, is if you weren't the best high school student, if you go to a community college and then transfer, that 4-year school will not be looking at your high school grades. So let's say you want to get to UCR and I don't know what their GPA requirement, but let's say you didn't meet their GPA requirement in high school. You can go to community college, you can transfer into UCR. And again, they don't care what your high school performance was because you've already been in college. Now, when it's time to transfer, there are transfer agreements with certain schools. And what that means is certain schools say, hey, if you go to this community college and get an associate's degree, we will guarantee accept you into our college. No questions asked. Now, I don't have a comprehensive list of all of the universities that have guaranteed acceptance if you go to RCC. There is a career center on campus and transfer center on campus that will be able to say, these are the schools we have transfer agreements with, knock out these classes at RCC, and UCR or whatever the school may be will guarantee you acceptance into their school. Now, we offer associate's degrees. You can take that associate's degree and transfer. We also offer something called certificates. Certificates are not associate's degrees. They only consist of classes for your major. So you're not doing general education classes with these certificate programs. Because you're not doing general education with these programs, you can earn a certificate in a program in 15 months or less. It all varies. Now, with these certificate programs, every program is not offered as a certificate program. So you can't waltz into RCC and say, I'm gonna become a lawyer and I'm only getting a certificate because Lamar said I can get a certificate in 15 months or not. Each school, community college that is, will tell you what they offer a certificate in, and then if they offer a certificate in that field, you can then get that certificate. Why would you get a certificate over an associate's degree? A certificate will allow you to get into the workforce as soon as possible. These are programs to where you're working with your hands. So things like HVAC, air conditioning, refrigeration, heating, all of that. If you know how to fix an air conditioning unit, an organization probably does not care if you have a master's degree or not. You can have a master's degree and still not know how to fix a refrigerator. But if you have certified training in HVAC, then they say you can go out and work because that's all we need you to know how to do is repair these things, fix these things and things like that. So certificates are more hands-on trade type programs that's going to get you specialized training in an area so you can go out and work. But you cannot get a certificate and then transfer to a 4-year school. You would still have to get an associate's degree if that's your goal. But if you're trying to hurry up and learn a skill and go to work, certificates are the program for you. If we have any freshmen, juniors, sophomores, seniors, you can still participate in this program, but you have less time. But we have a program called dual enrollments. If you have never heard about dual enrollments, this is your opportunity as a high school student to take college classes for free at your high school. So RCC will offer classes at your school. You go into that class like it's a normal La Sierra course. You take that class, you pass it, and by passing that class, you have now earned college credit. You have now earned high school credit. By participating in dual enrollment, if you join that program from the beginning and continue until the end, you can rack up enough units to where you have completed 1 year of college before you even graduated high school. And it is completely free. So if you knock out 1 year of high school, then you're now entering into college as a sophomore, and now you will only be in college for 3 years because you knocked out your freshman year with dual enrollment. If that sounds like something you are interested in, you will need to talk to your high school counselor. They will walk you through the process of getting into the program. Also, keep an eye out on your student emails, or talk to your counselor as well, because RCC will host a presentation about dual enrollment to tell you more about it, the classes we're offering, and walking you through everything. So if that's something you're interested in, go talk to your high school counselor as soon as possible, and they'll give you more information about it. You can also contact me as well. I'll give you my contact information. The other thing that community colleges can offer you is the chance to explore careers and improve yourself without the commitment of being rushed through college. When you're at a 4-year school and you're paying them thousands of dollars, you probably want to try to get out as soon as possible, because the longer you're there, the more money you're going to owe. But community colleges exist to allow you to just try out some new things. If you don't know what you want to do as a career, no worries. You don't need to figure that out right now. You have time. But if you say, I really want to see what crime scene investigation is like, take a crime scene investigation class we have. If you say, I don't really know if I want to be a nurse, all right, take some nursing prerequisite classes. It's really a chance for you to start to explore different careers, different majors, and different things. But we also you can come to RCC for self-improvement. And what that means is you can take any class that we have for any reason. If it could be a student who says, I'm not the strongest, my English isn't the strongest, they can come and take our English as a second language program for free. That program is free. You can take it for absolutely free. You can, if you have a parent or guardian or someone who's not the best at computers, they can come to RCC and just take a computer class. Anything we have to offer is available to you. But at a 4-year university, you just can't walk onto UCLA's campus and say, I'm gonna just take this class. They will say, have you been accepted? No, sorry, you can't take it. But at community colleges, you can take any class you want, because remember, it's open access. Anybody can go to the campus. Right here, just so you can kind of see a visual, these are all of the certificate programs I talked about a second ago. All of these programs, as I mentioned, you can complete in 15 months or less. And you are only taking classes for what you're going to school for. So if you want to do film, television, and video, then you only have to take those classes. If you want to do cosmetology, you're only taking those classes. These certificate programs put you in classrooms that's simulating the working experience. So you're not going to just be sitting at a desk listening. You're going to be up doing things with your hands. So cosmetology, for example, you are working in an actual shop that we have on campus. Your homework or your assignments is to help a client. So if they come in and say, I want purple hair, you did whatever you did and it ended up pink, then that's what you're going to be graded on, because your assignment was to dye someone's hair purple and you dyed it pink. If you're in the culinary arts program, you're going to be working in a restaurant that we have off campus in downtown Riverside. And as you start the program and you know nothing about cooking, because we don't know if you know anything about cooking when you first join it, then you're going to be the wait staff as well as being in classes to where you're learning, watching, and things like that. And as you progress through the program, you become the chefs, you become the bakers, you become the people preparing the food in that same restaurant. So these certificate programs are hands-on programs that can get you in and out of RCC in 15 months or less, so you can go out and find a job. Right, here's a list of all of our majors. There's 2 slides to it. I'm not going to stay on the majors too long, but I do want you to know that community colleges or colleges in general will not have every single major in the world. We just won't. It's just not possible. Now, if you're going to a community college, specifically RCC, then even if we do not have your major, we can still help you get that degree. How does that make sense? If you don't have the major, Lamar, how do you help me get that degree? And what happens is, let's say you come to me and you say, Lamar, I want to get a degree in, I can't even think of a major right now. Let's say you tell us you want to get a degree in engineering. You want a bachelor's degree in engineering. Then what we will do is we will help you get an associate's degree, or at least transfer to a four-year school that offers engineering as a major, and then you get your degree there. So we can still help you get to where you need to go, even if we do not have the major that you're specifically looking for. The second thing I do want you to know about majors, every school can call a major something else. Biology is biology. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to call biology anything different, but there are certain programs that can be called something else depending on what the school wants to call it. The greatest example I can give you on this slide is administration of justice. Most people call that criminology or criminal justice. We call it administration of justice. So sometimes we actually have your major, we just call it something else that you're not familiar with. So if you don't see your major at a community college or specifically RCC, you can still join our college. We would just, like I said, we can help you transfer to the school you want to go to, or we just call it something different. Here's the second list of classes, not classes, but majors. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on that. You can also look up the majors on our website, rcc.edu. But I want to talk about the price of education. If you have not looked up the cost of education, then you may not know this, but college is very expensive, very expensive. Some colleges can charge you $30,000 a year. Some can charge you 40, 50. There's even some that I've seen that charge about $75,000 a year just to attend. If you are quoted by a school $20,000 every year and you go to that school for 4 years, then you walked away with your degree, but you're also, thousands of dollars in debt, unless you have a full ride scholarship. So again, college can be very expensive, and community colleges, the main thing that differentiates us from four-year universities is how much it costs to attend. Community colleges are designed to be affordable. They're designed to give you quality education. And when I say quality, that means when you step foot on our campus, you're going to be dealing with real instructors, with real expectations. These are real classes. We're not just going to say, it's a community college, whatever, you get an A, whatever, we don't care. The instructors are going to push you because you're going to get a quality education. The education you get at RCC is going to be on par with the education that you're going to get anywhere else. Also, the instructors who teach at the local universities around us also come to RCC and teach. So an instructor that works at UCR is not going to come to RCC and go, I'm going to just do whatever. They're going to hold you accountable. When I went to a community college, I had a professor that taught a master's program, and he looked us in the eye and said, I'm not dumbing down my work. I'm going to teach you the same thing I teach students in a master program. So I just share that to say you're going to get a quality education that you're going to get anywhere else. But again, it's going to be affordable. Here is the price of attending RCC. We're not going to go through all of this. We're not going to spend too much time on this. I want you mainly to pay attention to the bottom right corner, the column that says, or the block that says $1,659 plus books. That is the estimated cost to attend RCC for 1 year. So if you come straight out of high school, you go in the fall semester, then you go into winter, spring, and then summer of next year, then that's 1 year of education. And it will cost you in grand total around that much. It could be less than that. It could be a little bit more than that, but students are not going to be paying like drastically over that or drastically under that if they're attending full time. The reason we don't include any prices for books is because books vary. We cannot estimate books because some instructors don't require books. Some instructors will give you the book for free. Some instructors might ask you to buy $300 worth of books. We just don't know. So we kind of leave it out so we don't give you a very high number or a low ball the number. But just attend without the books, you see that. $1,659. You do not pay all of that up front. You pay that you pay like a piece of that every semester. So you're not going to be paying all of that in one lump sum. You'll be paying that over the course of 12 months. Now, that is still a lot of money. Some people just don't have hundreds of dollars sitting around to write a check to go to college every semester. And that's where financial aid comes into play. If you are a senior, you will hear a lot about financial aid. FAFSA, the DREAM Act. You're going to hear a lot about that. If you're not tired of hearing about FAFSA yet, I say just wait until about March and you'll probably be tired because you're going to get bombarded with questions about your FAFSA. And the reason your high school is really going to push your FAFSA or your financial aid, whichever term they use, is the same thing, is because this is free money that the government wants to give you. And by you submitting the application, you're telling the government, tell me what I qualify for and set it aside for me just in case I go to college. So it's not a commitment to go to college if you do your FAFSA. The application is totally free and you don't pay anything back if all you do is submit the application. You're just saying, give me free money if I decide to go to college. But if you wait to do your financial aid, it hasn't happened recently, but there are some grants that can run out of money. So if you submit your FAFSA in October, you can qualify for a lot more money than if you submit your FAFSA in May of next year. So make sure you knock out your financial aid as soon as possible. The reason that is really critical is at a community college, your financial aid can pay for the bulk of your education, if not all of your education. I will repeat that. At a community college, your financial aid can pay for a bulk of your education, if not all of your education. There are several different types of financial aid. I'm not going to go into all of that. But the average community college student gets the bulk of their education paid for. And then there is a lot of students who get all of their education paid for. I will use an example of a student I talked to yesterday. Some of you might be just like this student. Some of you may not. But the student I talked to was given $3,000 per semester. So for the entire year to go to RCC, they got $6,000 to go to RCC for a full year. If you get $6,000 and it only costs you $1,659 to attend RCC, you have a lot of money left over. And I can promise you your books are not going to be $4,000. So you're going to have enough financial aid money that will cover your cost of education. And this is why a lot of students decide to go to a community college straight out of high school. Oftentimes they get their financial aid award letter from a four-year school, or they see the price of education at that four-year school and they say, I can't afford that. So they go to a community college for their first 2 years. Financial aid takes care of most of their education, if not all of it. And then they transfer into their four-year school as a junior. If you do that, you have successfully cut down the price of your education in half, because you're going to a four-year school or Cal State, a UC, or a private institution for 2 years instead of 4. So the main reason students choose community colleges straight out of high school, one, it could be like GPA requirements, or honestly, it's the cost of education. They're saving a lot of money in the long run. And I like to think the goal of college is to get out with the least amount of debt possible. If you can avoid all the debt, that's perfectly fine too. So just make sure you do your financial aid when it opens up on October 1st. You're going to hear a lot about workshops on campus. Just utilize those. If you're not a senior, you don't even have to worry about financial aid because you cannot do it right now. But my seniors, make sure you complete the financial aid. All right, so college and high school is completely different. When I was in high school, people would tell me that all the time. And I was like, one time from one of my teachers telling me that, from losing my mind. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's different. But the reason people keep saying that is to let you know what you are accustomed to in high school is not going to happen in college. There's a lot of back-end processes that you don't even know exist in high school that make sure you're okay. But in college, you literally have to decide what you need and you have to do whatever that step is. In college, you will never, or most colleges, you're not going to have a counselor who just sits and calls you and be like, hey, so I noticed you have a D in your class. What's going on? Or, hey, I noticed your last semester wasn't the greatest. Or, hey, let's register you for classes. That doesn't happen. If you want your textbooks, another example, if you want your textbooks, you have to go and get your textbooks. You have to research them. So you have to look them up. You have to go online and get your textbooks. And if you don't do that, you'll never have your textbooks. If you're struggling in a class, your instructor can't come to you and be like, hey, so you're struggling, let me get you some tutoring. Your instructor will just get, if you're doing poorly in a class, your instructor can give you an F and a D for every assignment, fail you and say, well, if you needed help, why didn't you say something? And that is really the point I'm getting to. When you get into college, let someone know if you need help. There are tons of programs on campus that we can help you, but we don't know what you need help with unless you tell us. So college is really about being a self-advocate. And what that means is if you need something, tell somebody. Don't be ashamed. Don't be scared. That is what we're all here for. And what you need help with doesn't have to just be class related. We have programs here that can, like cultural programs to address cultural needs. If you are the only person, let's say you look around the classroom and you look around it and you go, I'm the only African-American student here, or I'm one of the only few LGBTQIA students here that disclosed it, or I'm the only Latinx student here. You just feel like there's a cultural piece missing from your education. You can join cultural programs that are designed for students of that same cultural background that you can hang out with. They do field trips. They support you to make sure you get everything you need, and they are there to address cultural needs. We have programs that are there to address financial needs. What is a financial need? Like you don't have the money to buy your books. You don't have the money to pay for your education. You don't have the money to visit school, like four-year colleges, so you don't know what they offer. You can't take a tour. We have programs that can do things like get you free food on campus. So there's programs that will give you a food voucher. You just take to our cafeteria and you can just get free food. We also have programs to where you can go to our food pantry and you can get food that you can take home and cook. So you can get things like pastas and things like that. Again, you can go and make a meal. We have programs that can help you find housing. We have programs that can help you transfer. We have a lot of different support on campus. And the reason we're trying to address all of those needs are, if you don't address something that's going on in your life, whether it's your education life or your personal life, that can be the determining factor if you graduate college or not. So we don't want you to, we understand that life is stressful. We understand there's things out of your control, but we want to address and help you with as much as we can. So long story short, when you go into college, if you have any questions, you have any concerns, tell somebody. That's all you need to do. You don't need to know who to talk to. All you need to do is just go to someone that works in the campus. It could be me. It could be a counselor. It could be the person cooking your fries in the cafeteria and say, hey, I am struggling. I need help. And if you tell them a little bit about what's going on, they can be like, oh yeah, so you want to go talk to La Casa, they're right upstairs, or go talk to the Disability Resource Center, or go talk to Tutorial Services. The staff at RCC is designed to help you talk to these programs or get you in contact with the correct program. You don't need to know all of the programs on campus. You can even talk to your instructor. Your instructor can do it as well. So just let someone know and we can get you all the support you need on campus. One of the programs that we offer that support you through your college education is the Promise Program. The Promise Program promises you, the student, two different things. The first promise is we will create a pathway to a timely graduation. And what that means is we will make sure you can graduate in 2 years or less. Why is that important? Because in college, nothing is guaranteed or very little is guaranteed. So if you're not in the Promise Program, you might try to register for classes and all of the classes you're trying to get are full. Or the only time the class is open is like 8 o'clock at night. And you're like, I don't want to take an 8 o'clock at night class. With the Promise Program, they will allow you to register for classes before everyone else registers. So the classes you want and the times you want are still open. They will also make sure you get the classes that you need so you can graduate. So they're going to make sure you can graduate in 2 years or less. The second promise is we will offer free education to you in those 2 years that you're at RCC. So two promises. The first one is we can make sure you graduate in 2 years or less. And then two, we will pay for all of your education. We'll pay for the books. We'll pay for the student fees. We will pay for all of those fees that you might have saw on that other slide that I just didn't call off by name. But all of that on that slide, the Promise program will pay for. Now, if you hear that and you go, okay, well, that sounds interesting. What do I need to do to get into the program? You, one, have to be a current senior. That's the most important thing. Obviously, you can't join the Promise program if you're still in high school, and you'll still be in high school next year. But if you're a graduating senior, then this program applies to you. What I will say is you only get offered the Promise program one time and one time only. And that means is you're going to be offered to join this program in fall 2022. If you say no, if you say I'm going to take a break, if you don't register for classes in fall and then you decide to come back after fall, you cannot join the Promise program. It is now too late. You will only be offered this program in the fall semester after you graduate high school. So if you're a senior, this is only offered to you for fall 2022. That's it. So what do you need to do to get invited or join this program? The first thing is you need to submit a RCC application for summer or fall 2022. The application does not open until August 1st. Not August, I'm so sorry, October 1st. I've been talking all day, I'm getting tongue twisted. October 1st. So the application opens up on October 1st, and you would need to apply for summer or fall 2022. The second thing you need to do is submit your financial aid application. That also opens up on October 1st. So if you apply to RCC, if you do your financial aid, then you will be invited to this program in February or March. The reason we say February to March is it all just depends on a lot of different factors at RCC, but you will get invited before April 1st. So it can be the last day of March, you can get an invitation, but you'll get invited somewhere in February or somewhere in March. That invitation will come to your RCC email, and you have to complete some type of form that's going to be attached to that email. There's going to be steps that you still need to complete once you get that email. So make sure you read carefully and you do everything, because if you just get the email and you don't do what the email asks you to complete, then you will not be in the Promise program. This program is only offered to the first 1,500 students. So here's what I'll tell you. Let's say applications, or we start accepting students on February 15th. If we send out invitations on February 15th and 1,500 students reply and say, I want to be in the program, we're closed. So the program, there's no end date, like an end date I can give you. It's open until it's full. So you do not want to wait to do any of these steps. Although they do not invite anyone until February or March, you do not want to wait, because the later you wait to complete these steps, the more problems you're going to have down the line. I'm not even going to get into it. Just trust me. I've seen students try to get into the Promise program, and they are submitting their application like in March, like right before they graduate. And the majority of those students never got into the Promise program because they were just way too late. So do not wait. Just knock these out. Last thing I'm going to say, the last two things I'm going to say, make sure you are understanding what you are being asked on the RCC application and your financial aid application. If you make a major mistake on your application, such as you say, oh, I graduated in 2020, but you meant 2021, you will not get invited to the Promise program. If you put the incorrect financial information on your financial aid application, you may not get invited to the Promise program. So certain mistakes on your applications can cost you big time. So just make sure you're reading carefully. The questions aren't confusing. They're only confusing if you're not reading them thoroughly. But if you need help, that's what I'm here for. We'll get into that in a second. So you can always contact me and I can help you out. Hopefully you took a picture of this, or you wrote down the contact information for the Promise program. I am only a recruiter for the Promise program, meaning I tell you about the Promise program. But if you have questions like, hey, Lamar, so why didn't I get an invitation? Hey, Lamar, what is my requirements to stay in the Promise program? Hey, Lamar, when do I get my book voucher? I would not know. Only the Promise program would know. So if you have any specific questions about the Promise program, you have to call them or you have to email them. If you call or email anyone else, you will not be able to get the answer you need. So You can feel free to contact me if you like. I will just direct you back to the Promise program if you have specific questions, because I wouldn't know about some of those questions. But I do want you to take down that contact information, just because if you're thinking about Promise program, I guarantee you're going to need it at some point. So I'm going to just take a quick pause, just take a sip of water. I'm going to give you time to write that down, take a picture of it, or just get it in general, so you have it if you need it in the future. And then if you still didn't get it, I'll go ahead and bring this slide back up at the end. We have extracurricular activities on campus. So just like in high school, there is clubs on campus, there's ASB, there's athletics, you name it. Extracurricular activities is a great way to network. And networking is probably just as important in college than going to class, because networking allows you to get to know people and know people who may be able to do a favor for you in the future. These are individuals, these can just be friends. These can be people you're just going to be friends with for the rest of your life. These can be individuals that you may need their help later on in life. Let's say you join a program and you have someone who is like, all right, well, I'm super into film, television, and video. And he or she, or that student says, I want to work in Hollywood. Let's say you also want to work in Hollywood. Let's say 10 years from now, that person is working for a company, let's say it's like Warner Brothers. They may remember you and be like, oh yeah, Jesse said he wanted to get into the film industry. Let me contact him. And that is a thing that can happen. It has happened multiple times. I've seen it happen. Not that specific example of working like in Hollywood, but in certain industries. I've had professors promise jobs to students if they get a degree, and that student got the degree and the professor said, all right, here's the job. I've seen it actually work. So networking is a big part of your college career, and extracurricular activities is just a fun way to network with people. You can play a sport. We have any traditional sport you can think of. We have marching band, which is nicknamed Hollywood's band. And that's because they've been in tons of movies, TV shows, commercials. We have student government. We have just clubs on campus, clubs ranging from political clubs, academic clubs, clubs down to things like video games. If you just want to be around people who like video games because all your other friends are like video games, no, I don't want to play that. Then you can join a video game club and just be around people who share similar interests. But again, extracurriculars is just a way to get to know people, but they're not required. So if you do not want to do an extracurricular activity, you don't have to do it. If you are a senior and you are thinking about, you know what, that sounds cool, I might apply to RCC. What do I need to do? These are the steps that you are required to complete. And required is the key word in that sentence. You will submit an application to RCC. If you don't submit the application, you can't take a class because we don't know who you are. You're then going to be required to take an online orientation, because that orientation will go over things that you won't know, at least right now, like who's my counselor? How do I know what classes I'm supposed to take? What are my next steps? When can I register? Things like that. And then you're going to be asked to register for classes. These steps cannot be completed in one day, especially registering for classes. You will not be able to register for summer or fall classes until next April. But that does not mean you wait to do these 2 steps before it. The reason is we allow students who completed their application and orientation to register first. So the earlier you do these steps, you will register earlier than someone who did not do those steps. So let's say we have 2 students. One applied to RCC and did their orientation in October, and then the other student applied to RCC and did their orientation in February of next year, or let's say March of next year. Then the student who applied in March is going to register weeks after the student who applied in October. And in college, classes can fill up in a day. So you do not want to be that student they can register a month after we've registered for classes because you applied so late. Last thing I do want to note is you will notice that there's some things that's not here. Like you don't see anything about meeting with a counselor, right? I talked about financial aid earlier and talked about how important it is, but you don't see financial aid up here either, right? It is because in college, there's things that you have to do. You can't go to RCC if you don't do these 3 steps. But you can theoretically register for classes if you didn't do your financial aid. We won't stop you because financial aid is optional. Also, meeting with a counselor, you are not required to meet with a counselor. So what I say all that to say, as you start getting into college, you start applying to colleges, you need to start sitting with yourself for a little bit and asking yourself, what am I still unsure about? I submitted financial aid, but I don't know what happens next. You need to go follow up with your school to talk about financial aid. If I say go register for classes and you go, I don't know what classes to take, you need to go and meet with the counselor. So there's things that you're going to have to do that we're not going to force you to do. So just make sure you're having these conversations with yourself. And then lastly, here is my contact information. My name is Lamar Neal. I'm on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you will see my colleague, Jessica. She is not in the presentation today. The reason she is not here is because she primarily works with Riverside Unified School Districts. I work primarily with Albert and Haruba. So if there is a presentation, workshop, or anything going on at your high school, then you're probably going to see me. I am going to be your first line of contact for anything RCC related, especially if you do not know who to contact. If you know you have a question about Promise Program and you have the Promise Program number, just call Promise Program. But if you say, I don't know what to do, you can contact me. I can point you in the right direction. My job is to make this as easy on you as possible.